Aren't you a little short for a stormtrooper?
What's up, nerds? Welcome to another episode of the Multiverse Report. We are recapping the week's nerdy news from the small screen to the big screen and everywhere in between. My name is Mike Gibson. With me now is Steve Howler. What's up, Steve?
Technical difficulties, Mike. That's what's up. For any of you watching live on the YouTube, you did not see our normal splash screen. Instead, you saw an advertisement for an interview you should go check out that we did last week. So the splash screen for the interview with the one, the only Jay Stevens, the writer of Dwellings, among many other amazing things, including Figgy Furthermore, his current Kickstarter that looks awesome, especially if you have kids. About a ghost dog and its travails with its owner that is less than savory,
Less than dead.
Oh yeah. Well, yes, the owner is less.
The owner is less than dead. Is what I thought you were to say.
But we linked it in the show notes. I forgot to take it off the splash page. So the Multiverse Report this week is the interview with Dwellings creator Jay Stevens. However, we got a very different episode than that for you. But please go check that out. It was a great interview, great chat with Jay for probably 40-50 minutes until we had to stop.
Yeah, it was really great. Yeah, like I said in the intro to that episode, we probably could have talked to him longer if you and I didn't have a hard out. That was a great time. And when you said, I wasn't sure why you were calling it technical difficulties, I thought it would be smart to advertise our interview.
It worked out great.
But you're just
I saw the splash page. I'm like, oh, sweet. We can just segue right into the advertisement.
Yeah, why not? But also, speaking of interviews, end of this month, in another little over a week, we'll be talking to G. Willow Wilson, co-creator of Ms. Marvel, current writer of DC's Poison Ivy, writer of great books like Invisible Kingdom and Cairo and Hunger and the Dusk.
You say my 2023 book of the year, Hunger in the Dusk?
Yeah, yep. And just an all-around stellar writer and creator. Very excited to talk to her.
And the One Bad Day Catwoman.
Yep, she did the Batman One Bad Day Catwoman series. She also has a really cool Batman Black and White story that I reread this week. I feel like I'm just combing everything I have for anything by G. Willow Wilson. And she also has written an arc of the Sandman, The Dreaming spinoff series from a couple years ago. That's also very good. That interview is going to be I'm going to try not to make it just a compliment fest for however long it is. It's going to be hard for Steve and I just not going. And then when you did this, it was also
it's going to
really
be
good.
Like you said really before, the Chris Farley.
It's going to be the Chris Farley show. Yeah, if people know that reference.
Yep.
Anyway, also, so be on the lookout for that. Go listen to our interview with Jay Stevens. And also, as always, this show is sponsored by Funky Town Comics in Camillus, New York. Funky Town Comics and vinyl. But we're not the only thing that Funky Town Comics and vinyl is sponsoring.
There's your segue. I was going to say, Mr. Jay Stevens is from Toronto, Ontario. Well, Guelph, Ontario, Canada, just south of Toronto. He's pretty close enough that maybe he could make a stop down to your next mention.
Syracuse Collectors Con, March 16th and 17th at the Great New York State Fair Horticulture Building. Going to be a lot of great vendors there. Cool little Comic Con. I will be there as a comic writer. Steve and I will be there as podcasters, and maybe doing some interviewing live on the floor. So we shall see how that goes. But you should definitely be there checking out all the great vendors and celebrity guests, artists, writers, just vendors that are going to be there. So check it out. Syracuse Collectors Con, March 16th and 17th. And
you just made me remember that I have to now figure out all the technical how I'm going to pull this off, recording from the floor and all that. So
I reminded myself that I have to order some books that I sold out of at Saratoga Comic Con that I need more of to sell at Syracuse Collectors Con.
There we go.
Yeah. So moving on. Oh, also, Steve, you mentioned earlier people who might be watching this on YouTube. I need to say, I don't know if anyone's watching currently, but if you join later because you thought we were going on at 9:30 like normal, sorry, we're going on earlier because I'm not feeling 100%. My son has had the flu, and it's possible that I might be coming down with it. So if you hear a little bit of a lack of energy in my voice, that might be why. Also why we started earlier, because I'm going to go to bed earlier. So if for some crazy reason, like, you saw an Instagram reel of my face saying that we were going to be on tonight at 9:30 and you took that to heart, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That version of me lied to you, but not knowingly. If that makes it any better.
Well, that version of you did not know future you, and here we are in the future.
Here we are in the future. So I'm sorry for those people that are going to be jumping on here in the next 40 minutes thinking that they're going to see the beginning of the show when they'll likely be catching the end, and they'll have to scroll back to hear us talk about some big news that dropped from Lucasfilm this week in regards to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
Steve, we're
Yes.
getting another Star Wars movie. We got an
Yeah.
announcement of another Star Wars film. Not the new Jedi Order, starring Daisy Ridley and being directed by Charmin Obaid-Chinoy. Not the Dave Filoni Mandalorian verse movie that's been rumored that was announced at Star Wars Celebration. And not the James Mangold Dawn of the Jedi or History of the Force movie that was also announced at Star Wars Celebration. None of those three. We're still getting all those three. None of those three have been canceled. But also, we are getting a film apparently titled The Mandalorian and Grogu. This is a film that is to be directed by Jon Favreau himself, and it's going into production this year. Like, this movie's greenlit and going. It's going in production this year. Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni are also going to be producing it alongside Jon Favreau. Quote from Kathleen Kennedy said, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni have ushered into Star Wars two new and beloved characters, and this new story is a perfect fit for the big screen. Now, just to quell any concerns that you may have right out of the gate, Mandalorian Season 4 is still in production. This is not taking the place of Mandalorian Season 4. A few months ago, there were some rumors that they were taking Mandalorian Season 4 and turning it into a movie. And then we got the news about Dave Filoni directing a movie, and we weren't sure if that was going to be Mandalorian Season 4 or what. But apparently Mandalorian Season 4 is still happening, and so is the Dave Filoni directed Mandoverse film. Those other two things are still happening. We're just getting an additional film about the Mandalorian and Grogu. Now, Steve and I have already talked about this a little bit when it dropped. We have texted back and forth about this. So I'm not sure where to start.
I will start with the title. That sure as hell better be a working title, because what?
That title is bad. That's a bad title.
Yeah.
It's a bad title. Especially for a Star Wars movie. That's a bad title.
Uh-huh.
You got to come up with something else. I don't know. I don't have a better idea because I don't know what the movie's about.
Right.
But you got to have a better title than that. The Mandalorian and Grogu. It's not a great, I don't know. Get some metaphor rolling there, Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
We don't
do anything.
Yeah. Anything else? It's a bad title.
All right. Next step. I titled the podcast this, but tell me right out, Mike. Are you excited about The Mandalorian and Grogu?
Now, based on just this existing,
Right.
I'm not inherently excited about a Mandalorian and Grogu film. No, I'm not inherently excited about it. I am excited generally about getting more Star Wars anything. So, like, whatever kind of, like, either huge praise or big retractions I will say about this announcement in the next 10 minutes as we're talking about it. Bottom line, I'm always excited to get more Star Wars.
Right.
It may not be what I expected. It may not be what I wanted them to do. And that's my general rule for all of Star Wars. It's never going to be what you expect. It's never going to be what you want. You got to accept it and go with it. And I'm doing that with this announcement. I wasn't clamoring for a Mandalorian movie. I was fine with Mandalorian being a TV show. But they're giving it to us, and so I'm going to be excited about it, and I'm going to go see it. So I think that for me, my excitement about this movie, outside of just being a new Star Wars thing, which does get me excited in general, my excitement about this movie will hinge on when we get maybe story details, or further down the line when we get like a trailer. But we're not going to get a trailer till we'll probably get a teaser next year or something. But it's going to be a long time before we probably learn anything too concrete about this movie. Yeah. So
Yeah.
Steve, are you excited about a film called The Mandalorian and Grogu?
No.
No.
Like flat
Why
out
not?
no.
Yeah, why not?
Because
dude?
it feels like a complete cash grab. It feels like the higher ups at the studio saying, "Oh shit, what has worked in the past?" Which, mind you, they just put out Mandalorian season 3, which, though I liked parts of it, was as a whole of a season of television a relative compared to 1 and 2 stinker. Not not bad.
It's the worst. It's the
right.
Yeah, it's my least liked season of Mandalorian. Yeah.
You know, maybe if this announcement comes after season 2 when everybody's still riding high or something, it's one thing, but it's like, all right, you guys have lost your way on the TV show and now you're trying to throw this at us that makes little to no sense, but you're also trying to pigeonhole it in before the plans that you already made that were going to give us a nice gap in Star Wars and the ability to kind of breathe a little. And like Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy has come out and had interviews on her film that seem to be promising and have like something new and new energy to it, and you're just like, we're gonna throw this thing in there. Like, what are you doing? Like, let it breathe, let it do its thing, man. Like, you have a plan, stick to the plan.
Okay, but that is you assuming a lot of stuff in that.
It's assuming based off of what they've told us.
Well, they haven't really told us. They told us they're making this movie.
Yeah.
And that's it. They told us they're making a movie, and Jon Favreau was directing it.
We
don't know whose idea this was. This could have been Jon Favreau's idea, and he could have pitched it and said, like, hey, I want to do this movie because I have this good story that is a better movie than a show. I agree with you.
At the same time,
I agree with you.
Yep.
Sorry, you can go.
I was going to say, at the same time, Jon Favreau has shown that without Filoni around for a season of The Mandalorian, we got what we got.
But Filoni was involved in season 3.
Filoni was doing Ahsoka season 1 while Mandalorian season 3 was happening.
Okay. But Jon Favreau,
I mean, yes, track record.
Certainly
I like
no
Jon
slouch.
Favreau. Oh, no, not at all. Like, extremely glad Jon Favreau is involved in the Star Wars universe. But, like, it seems like him and Filoni very much work well off each other. And we're able to strike lightning in a bottle with Mandalorian and this whole new thing. And I don't know. It's the whole timing of everything just seems weird to me. And this is the first thing in a long time that I've seen with the Star Wars name on it that I've just been like, okay.
Well, here's what I was about to say is that I do agree with you that it feels possible. I'll say that. It necessarily doesn't feel like it, but it feels possible that this is somebody at Lucasfilm saying, we have to get a Star Wars movie in theaters, soon.
That's what it very much feels like.
Charmaine Obaid-Chinoy is not, like, they're still cooking over there. We don't want to rush them. James Mangold's still writing because of the strike. There hasn't, we haven't been able to make as much progress on these movies as we wanted. What can we fast track that maybe we don't have to spend as much time on, or we don't have to spend as much money on to get up and running? Jon Favreau, what do you got?
But
I got this idea for a spin-off Mandalorian movie.
But see, that's exactly my problem. Is it's someone at Lucasfilm just saying, how can we get something into theaters instead of in general, like, and again, these are all assumptions, and I'm 100% going old man yells at cloud here. But it really feels like someone at Lucasfilm was like, oh shit, we need to get something in theaters. When in actuality, I almost feel like, and this is coming from a guy who literally is surrounded by Star Wars comic books. It needs some time to breathe. Like we had a glut of content. One of the things that everyone literally has said about what they did with the sequels and everything was, you're putting too much shit out. Like, well, between like too tight together and like there was a combination.
I kind of disagree with that because we haven't had a movie since 2019. Like, I'm ready for a Star Wars movie. I don't care that.
Well, we haven't had a movie,
characters that I've seen recently.
But that's the thing, is we haven't had a movie since 2019, but we've had more Star Wars content since then than we've ever had. So it's like, yes, you haven't seen it on the big screen, but there's literally been more hours of Star Wars in live action. Even like if you just went live action, there's more hours of Star Wars in live action than we've seen in decades.
I know, but I'm hungry for the big screen version. And what I'm hoping is, I mean, Jon Favreau made Iron Man. He made one of the best superhero movies of all time. Iron Man.
He was also Gutter in PCU.
Yes, and he was in PCU, one of the greatest college films of all time. And he made Elf, one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. He's got a good track record of films. He's made some ones that aren't great still, but he's a good filmmaker. I'm more excited about this announcement that Jon Favreau is directing this movie than Dave Filoni directing this movie. And that's not really any
Yes.
shade on Dave Filoni, maybe a little shade on Dave Filoni.
No,
But
it shouldn't
like,
be
I think
though.
he's
I think
I
we're
think
both of
he's
the
all
ilk that Filoni is the Lucas. Like
Yeah.
he's a better director than George ever was,
Yeah.
but like he's 100% the idea guy. So
Sure.
let him be the idea guy.
And I think let him direct some more live action episodes of television.
Yep.
Which is happening, by the way. Another announcement buried in this press release was the fact that Dave Filoni is currently working on Ahsoka season 2.
Mhm.
So that's another bit of Star Wars news that's happening, which I'm very excited about. And he's certainly no slouch at directing those TV shows, but I would like him to do more of that before jumping to the big screen, because I don't want either of these movies, Mandalorian and Grogu, or the Mandoverse movie that Filoni's planning. I don't want either of those movies to look like or feel like they're shot on the volume stage, like those Disney Plus shows are, like Ahsoka or like Mandalorian or like Obi-Wan Kenobi. Like, I want it to look and to feel and to sound like a film. And I think Jon Favreau is the one that will make that happen. I think Jon Favreau's a smart guy. Not that Dave Filoni isn't. I'm not saying that this part is no shade against Dave Filoni. Jon Favreau 100% knows how to make a big budget action film. He knows what it looks like and sounds like and how to shape a thing like that, separate from the volume stage on Disney Plus, in not necessarily in front of a green screen the whole time. And a lot of those shows are either green screened or volumized, made that way. So the fact that Jon Favreau's doing it makes me more excited for it. I think back on like, I wasn't clamoring for a Rogue One movie. I wasn't clamoring for Solo. I love both of those movies though. And this could easily be in that same kind of thing where I'm not dying for a Mandalorian movie at all. I'm happy with Mandalorian being a TV show.
Yeah.
But you know what? They're making a movie. I'm going to go see it, and I hope that it's good. So I have more faith in Jon Favreau directing it, but I think that it's going to come down to, like I said earlier, what it looks like, what the story is, what the trailer is. Personally, I'm hoping that this is a slightly lower budget film that's like a sleek and fast-paced, under 2 hours or just barely over 2 hours action movie that is not maybe like a one-off adventure, not necessarily something that's supposed to like spawn a trilogy or fit into like the wider Skywalker saga or anything like that. Like, just give me like so similar to Solo, like just give me like a one-shot adventure of these two characters, and I think I will like that way more than if they're like tying it into the Thrawn stuff or anything having to do with, setting up the sequel trilogy or leading into that sequel trilogy or anything. Like, just give me like a one-off thing that looks like a movie and feels like a movie and has the balls of a movie,
Spoiler alert.
I'll
They
enjoy
won't.
it. Who won't what?
They won't just do that. They'll try and tie it in. Someone from up above will say, well, we need to do this or that or whatever.
Yeah.
I am with you on the Favreau, like the big budget action thing. In 2008, the budget for Iron Man was 140 million.
Yeah.
Which in modern is like 200 million.
Right.
If they could turn this in around 200 million, because big budget then versus big budget now are apparently two different things, because hypothetically that could have doubled in the way things are being produced in modern times. But like, throw a $200 million movie out there that you can do. Like, Mando doesn't need to be crazy special effects. You can do a lot of things practical. You can do what you need to do, planet side a lot of times.
Hey, if Godzilla -1 can look as good as it did with the budget that they had, you can make a Star Wars movie for that same amount, and you can make this kind of Star Wars movie. So I hope that's what they do. Steve, I agree with you. Not necessarily about like the tying things into the larger mythology, but I think it will be hard for them to not push this and build this as like the next
Right.
epic Star Wars. Like, I don't want that. Like, the best way to overcome the thing that I say all the time, how Star Wars is about expectations and nostalgia expectations and fan expectations and blah, blah, blah. It's tied into our souls and hearts and all
Yeah.
that. Like, the best way to overcome that is to not come out of the gate saying, hey, people, this is the next epic chapter in the thing that you love more than anything. They'll be like, yeah, no, this is like a fun one-shot action movie. Like, if you can find a way to bill it like that and still create the hype that you need for a Star Wars movie, then you're golden. And if you keep it under $300 million budget, because no movie should cost that much.
I still
So
just
that's how
want
that's how I feel.
I want them to take, this is someone who talks about this weekly. I want them to take everything they're putting out for Star Wars and everything they're putting out for Marvel and just cut it in half.
See, I agree with Marvel. I don't agree with Star Wars. I want the Star Wars stuff
yeah.
for sure.
I mean, I will voraciously consume the Star Wars stuff, but I'm trying to think
Yeah.
longevity of the brand and not burning people out on it
Yeah.
too much. And like, I don't know. It's funny because I feel like over the course, you and I have shifted a little on that of like, you were like, all right, turn the hoses off for a while, like maybe a year and a half ago.
Yeah. Well, I see the films differently than I see the shows.
Right. And
And maybe
I
that's
don't.
because I'm not like a big rewatcher of the shows. Where I'll watch any Star Wars movie at any time, and I do.
Right.
Throughout the year. I'll watch some Star Wars movies multiple times in a year. Like, because I just want to see them again. I love it, and I want to see them again. Where I just rewatched Obi-Wan Kenobi for the first time, but like, I'm not going to do that again tomorrow or anything like that. So I know that they're part of the same story, like all Star Wars is. But my brain, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's just that it hasn't been. I was about to say my brain keeps the shows and movies separate, but they don't really. They don't do that for Marvel. Marvel, I feel like, is a glut of content that I'm glad is shutting off at least this year. But Star Wars, maybe it's because I love Star Wars more than I love Marvel. That it doesn't bother me as much. But also, like, you're saying the glut of Star Wars content, that has the size of that glut hasn't been nearly the size of the glut of stuff we've gotten from Marvel in the last 3 years or 5 years.
100%.
So I'm not tapped out on Star Wars stuff the way that I'm, getting tapped out on Marvel stuff. And
right.
And the stuff that Star Wars is putting out this year is seemingly going to be like new and fresh, and like the Acolyte and Skeleton Crew we know very little about. So I'm excited for that stuff because we don't know anything about it. I'm a little less excited for Mandalorian and Grogu because we do know those characters a lot and we associate them with being on this TV show. So how is that going to be different? What are they going to do that's different? There's all these questions in my head about it. I don't have those questions. That's those anticipatory questions I don't have for Skeleton Crew and Acolyte because I just don't know anything about them.
Right. And the thing is,
which is the kind of Star Wars I like. I like not knowing what Star Wars is doing until they do it.
And I think that's part of why I have a problem with this movie. Of like, listen, you have these established characters. You're doing what you're doing. This is the same company that has been throwing anything with Grogu on it as a money grab for years since he became a cultural phenomenon. Like, are you putting this out just to save your bacon, or is this going to be a fully cooked idea? And if it's a fully cooked idea, I'm 100% behind it. But the way it was rolled out and everything that we've heard and seen, it doesn't have me convinced. I guess I'll just leave it at that. Of like, it's not that I'm not excited. It's not that I'm not hyped. I'm not convinced.
Yeah. Well, I'm not fully convinced either. I just have a more positive outlook about it, I guess, than you.
Yeah, I'll just
general.
go full cynic.
I also like the idea that when we do eventually get, again, the rumors that Dave Filoni is going to end up directing this film that ties in a lot of the TV show characters and wraps up a lot of those stories from those shows being Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and Skeleton Crew is what I've heard. That all those characters are going to meet up in a Star Wars Avengers style film that kind of wraps up or puts a bow on that universe. I really like the idea of having Mando already rooted in a cinematic experience before we get that team up movie. For some reason, that makes it smoother to me because who knows who else will pop up in this movie. Like I feel like it's a strong chance we'll see like Bo-Katan or whatever, at least as like a minor character in the Mandalorian and Grogu film. Who knows? I don't know. There's a good chance we'll see, some of those characters. But like kind of setting the pace for that instead of just like, oh, all of a sudden all these characters are together and it's a movie and it's not a show. Like that would be more jarring to me if this movie wasn't coming out first. Does that make sense? What I'm saying?
Yes, it makes sense. It also, again, adds to my trepidation. Like,
Yeah.
for one, why the hell, like, why are we doing a team up between the Mandalorian, Grogu? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are these paths intertwining?
Because they have to stop Thrawn.
Correct. Mandalorian, like, when has Din Djarin ever shown that he is going to be part of the greater good or anything like that?
Well, I don't know, man, but I think
He's
his
a good
arc is
guy, but
turning
he's
towards
strictly
that.
for himself and like for those
Well, he used
around
to be.
him.
He
You know
used
what I
to
mean,
be.
though.
I know what you mean, but you know what I mean too.
But,
His
like-
arc is turning towards,
You're
bounty hunter
telling
with
me
a heart of gold.
correct. That's fine, but like, what the whole thing makes no sense. Like,
This is
yeah,
the biggest debate you and I have ever had on this show. We've been
Right.
doing this show
Oh,
for
100%.
over 2 years. This is the most we've ever gone back and forth
Well, and
about a thing.
part of it
We've
for
talked
me,
Star
too-
Wars plenty of times.
Oh, yeah.
This is great.
I think part of it for me too is the fact that like I know they're going to try and like they're going to use the Heir to the Empire name. They're going to probably try
At
and
some
use
point, sure.
story beats to it. And like they've said so much in like offhand interviews that it's going to be like Heir to the I think Filoni said Heir to the Empire at one point.
He says that he really likes that and wanted to, that's why he put that line in Ahsoka.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like what how the whole thing doesn't make sense, but it's not going to until we see it, and I'm just going to be a crotchety old shit yelling at a cloud. So, whatever. Here we are.
What
I'm
is
still going to be
what-
there opening day to watch it, so I don't
Yeah,
know what
of course, me too. And the other thing that I think I don't know when this movie's coming out. It's very possible that this will be my son's first new Star Wars movie in a theater. Like he saw Return of the Jedi, but he had seen that before.
Right.
But depending on when this comes out and how his maturity level with movies is at that point, if it's 2025, he'll be 8 years old. I will probably take him to see this movie. And that's exciting for me. So Steve, before we move on, this is definitely the biggest story we're talking about tonight. I don't think we're spending too long on it because
Right.
the other ones I don't think we'll talk on too much, people. But Steve, if they announced a movie other than the 3 that they announced at Star Wars Celebration, other than the Mangold, other than the Filoni, other than the Charmin Obey-Chinoy, if they were to announce a 4th movie that wasn't The Mandalorian and Grogu, what would you have preferred them announce?
That Rogue One was actually getting greenlit.
Rogue
or
Squadron,
Rogue
you mean?
Squadron.
Yeah. I should have known that would be
Yeah,
the
I
answer.
mean, there's
Yeah.
no, but within that universe of things that we knew,
Yeah.
like I feel like I feel like the Ahsoka Sabine stuff actually lends itself more to a cinematic experience than Din and Grogu.
Yeah.
I feel like Ezra coming back and whatever is going to happen there lends itself. Like if you're going to stay within that storyline or anything involving the New Republic Avengers, like literally anyone except for who they chose in my brain fits better.
I feel like it's going to be interesting when we get more details about this movie because, like, what is the conflict going to be? Like,
Yeah.
who is going to be the antagonist? What is the storyline that, I mean, Kathleen Kennedy says this is a new story that's perfect for the big screen. What is that story? And how is it big enough to warrant a film, but not big enough to like overshadow the Skywalker saga or whatever else is going on in the galaxy at this time? Like, because this assumedly is going to take place in the same time period after post Return of the Jedi, pre Force Awakens. So I guess we don't know in the new canon. I guess we do from comic books maybe, but I don't read the comic books. But like film viewers don't know what Luke and Han and Leia and Chewie are doing during that time necessarily, unless you've read the books.
I mean, even the comics don't
So-
touch on that a whole hell of a lot. Like the
Right.
mainline comic right now is in between Empire and Return.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. So, I mean, I hate even saying this. Is there a possibility that we're going to see AI Luke Skywalker in this movie?
I'm sure we will.
You're sure we will?
I'm sure they'll at least
I'm not
have
sure.
some nod.
I hope that I hope we don't. I hope they I get if they're put it like that team up movie we talked about. I'm sure that we'll see him in that.
Yeah.
That's going to be like a big, like I said, like it's going to be the Avengers of
Right.
this period in Star Wars. You're going to
But how do you draw him in without
up.
like reintroducing him with, Mando and Grogu? Maybe that's the story, is going to find Luke or something like that.
Yeah, they already know where he is though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like that, I just hope, again, I don't trust them to
Yeah.
do this. I just hope that it's literally like a complete side adventure.
Yeah.
There's nothing to do with the big overarching Filoni thing, and it's just like a one-off, awesome action movie. That's what I'm hoping
know
for.
what
and
I'm
my fingers gonna be
really-
crossed until I hear otherwise.
You know what I'm really realizing?
What?
What I'm annoyed with is Grogu.
Explain.
I don't know what we've seen 3 seasons of a show
Mhm.
of him literally being inserted into everything and doing nothing. Unless it's
That's a
a
good
Deus
point.
Ex Machina. Like literally
and
he has
remember-
only been a Deus Ex Machina in the entirety of this run.
And also remember that I think the other reason that Mandalorian season 3 wasn't as great was that, didn't we hear that they like weren't supposed to reunite? Like Grogu and Mando weren't supposed to reunite, but they
Right, they forced it
didn't.
in.
Like Lucasfilm forced Favreau and Filoni to make Book of Boba Fett, even though they didn't have like enough of an idea. So they used a lot of what they had for Mando season 3 in Book of Boba Fett.
Mhm.
So then they were left scraping for idea, and that's why specifically in season 3, Grogu is just hanging out and doesn't really have anything to really do because he wasn't even meant to be there.
Right.
It was just supposed to be, that was supposed to be Mandalorian and Bo-Katan going back to Mandalore, and it wasn't really supposed to have anything to do with Grogu.
Which again, the best thing that could have happened would have been Grogu staying with Luke, having a whole season, and then having the reunion at the end or something like that.
I think
But
that was the
Right.
original idea. Was just not even worry
yeah,
about
those
where Grogu was.
those shots were probably supposed to be like, oh, they saved Mandalore, now we're going to find Grogu or something like that.
yeah.
Or like interspersed throughout the season.
So maybe the movie is a Grogu heavy thing. Maybe this is the movie where we find out more about that species that we've never known anything about.
See,
Because if we're going to do that,
I almost
if we're
don't
going
like
to do
that
that,
either.
I almost don't like that either because I'm pretty sure George Lucas has had a mandate that we never find out what Yoda is. We never learn
Right.
about Yoda. But if we're finally going to get any information about that species, that information better come from a movie and not a Disney Plus show.
Yeah.
That's what I.
And also,
how I
like, Lucas
feel.
was on set during filming of The Mandalorian with Filoni. Like,
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's not like it's not like we're outside of the realm of him, giving his blessing on that sort of thing, at least. But
For sure.
yeah, I don't know.
So anyway,
I just feel weird about this whole thing.
what you are hearing, folks listening or watching this conversation that you're hearing is basically what the Star Wars fandom online was doing all last week
Yeah.
after this announcement. Some people were head over heels excited about this movie. Some people really, really don't want it. And some people are more in the middle, like Steve and I. Steve's kind of in the lower middle. I'm more in the upper middle. But,
Yeah.
this debate was kind of happening all over Star Wars social media. So
Oh, if
You're
I go ask my
welcome
wife,
for,
she's going to be happy. Or if I go tell her that, she's going to be happy as hell that they're making it.
I told my wife and my son, and they're both like, wow, it sounds awesome. Oh, great.
Cool.
Okay, cool.
Great.
Yeah.
I'll be
And
there
again,
with you, but
Yeah. So we will see as we learn more about this movie. Will Steve's excitement increase? Will mine decrease? Will we meet somewhere in the middle? Or will we both float to the top like so much cream? It's like the most old-timey reference I could possibly make.
we're just going to separate the wheat from the chaff, Mike.
Yeah. Are you excited about Ahsoka season 2? Say that real quick before we move on.
I don't know. If they don't screw it up, I will be. I think I
mean,
like where they left it. I'm worried about not having Ray Stevenson as Balin Skull.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest question mark is what to do with that character that was so popular and seemed like so promising. And the storyline for that character seems so promising.
His characterization of that was some of the best things we've seen from an evil character in Star Wars.
I mean, and hey, talk about restraint.
Or I guess an antagonist, not even an evil character necessarily.
Exactly. But we're saying that we doubt these creators having the restraint, or the company to have restraint in storytelling. Like, we don't know anything about what he was doing and why that character wanted to go to that planet, or what his point was, or whatever. Which is part of the reason why it's even more of a bummer that the actor's gone.
Yeah.
Because are they going to recast in order to complete that plot line? Are they going to write him out but still have it go on? Like, who knows what's going to happen? But
no, the first scene of Ahsoka season 2 is going to be like a TIE fighter shooting him off of the hand of the father, and just the Wilhelm scream as he's falling, and that's that.
It's funny. Because you brought it up, I just said this to you the other night.
And that's why I brought it up. It came into my brain again.
Last week, I watched Raiders of the Lost Ark with my son for the first time. Multiple times I had him close his eyes, especially at the ending, because it's horrifying. But also thematically worked, because during the ending of that movie, Harrison Ford and Karen Page are also, not Karen Page, sorry, I'm jumping ahead, Karen Allen, are closing their eyes so they don't get hurt by the power of God coming out of the Ark. So they're, Indy's yelling, "Keep your eyes shut," and my son is next to me on the couch with his hands over his eyes. Anyway, proudest moment of watching that film with my son was when he recognized the Wilhelm scream. Now, those of you who don't know the Wilhelm scream, you probably do know it. It is a scream. It's a sound effect, a famous sound effect of a scream. A guy just going, "Ah!" That is used all the time. It's used in tons of movies. It's used in, I think, every Star Wars movie uses it. Possibly every Indiana Jones movie uses it. Steve, I can tell that you're looking up the audio of it right now. Is that correct?
Possibly.
Yeah. We heard it. I think Indiana Jones threw somebody out of a truck or something in that the truck chase scene, Raiders of the Lost Ark. And my son turned to me and goes, "Dad, that's the same scream they use in Star Wars." I was like, "Yep, it is, buddy. It is. That's the Wilhelm scream." He didn't know about it ahead of time. I didn't prompt him. I didn't explain to him what it was afterwards. I was like, "You're right, buddy." And in my heart, very proud that he on his own recognized the Wilhelm scream.
Yep. And for anyone listening on the audio, you heard it. I doubt Mike did, but.
Oh, I didn't hear it, but awesome. Cool. Yeah. All right. Moving on from a galaxy far, far away to a galaxy very close to us. The galaxy.
You know what?
Milky
There's
Way.
a Jon Favreau tie-in here.
There sure is. Speaking of Jon Favreau's characters that he used to play once in a movie that is not great.
Shouldn't be mentioned, especially if we're talking about this cast.
It has good parts, but
they're few and far between.
Anyway, we're talking about Daredevil. And this is something that Steve and I have wanted for a long time. We've talked about all the reasons why in time this very show. So I can't think that we're going to spend too long on it. But according to Inside Scooper Jeff Snyder, Deborah Ann Wool and Eldon Henson will be returning to reprise their roles as Karen Page and Foggy Nelson in the new Disney Plus series Daredevil Born Again. Snyder says that there's no indication of how much of a role they will have. It might literally only be the first episode of the series. Who knows? But that this change is part of the big creative overhaul was announced a few months ago. After the writer's strike was solved, Marvel came out with this big announcement how some movies were moving and they were square one retooling of Daredevil Born Again. So I think at that time, Steve, you and I talked about how we hope that this retooling comes with getting Karen Page and Foggy Nelson back with those actors. And lo and behold, it does. And I'm very, very happy about it, I must say.
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's those three are like that
core.
Trio was such a core of that show. Like Deborah Ann Woll
Yeah.
as Karen and Eldon as Foggy were almost as much a part of that whole series as Charlie Cox was.
They
It-
definitely were.
it-
And they
it
were
was-
written to be that way.
Oh, 100%. And
Their storylines were written just as well as the main character, which is why that show is so good.
Right.
No part of it's boring.
and
It's interesting on all levels.
currently we're also finding out that things can be reshot and not completely horrible by Disney's latest thing they've put out, which is Daredevil Adjacent.
Yeah, Echo.
Mm-hmm.
Man, have you finished it?
I have not. I think I'm through 3.
It is great. There's 5 episodes. It's great, people. It's great. I know, like, Steve and I were... Why did we have the impression that it was bad? Did we read a review that it was bad just because we heard about a bunch of reshoots and that they were dropping it all at once? I think we added
there
those up
was-
to being bad, but we were wrong.
Well, there was a combination because there was the confirmation that D'Onofrio's Kingpin was in it,
Yep.
which we had seen. The only time we had seen him in the MCU was in Hawkeye, which was a very suboptimal characterization of him. We had seen Alaqua Cox killing it as Echo in any way, shape, or form, but that was the only thing that seemed positive about the series. We had the reshoots and the complete reshoot hell that it went through. And then we had them just changing the release date and dropping it all in one day, which
And
is
it
a
being
very
January.
un-Disney thing
Yeah.
in January. So all of that added up meant 0 expectations for this thing.
But man, it's great. It's so good. The fighting is great. There is spoiler alert, there is a short cameo from Matt. I think it was confirmed that Daredevil was in the show, or Matt Murdock's in the show. I just thought it was really good. I think the characterization of Kingpin is much closer to the Netflix show than Hawkeye did. I think in general, Echo is probably the closest feeling to one of those Netflix shows than any other thing we've gotten from Disney Plus.
It definitely has that brutality as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't go quite as hard, and it's not quite as well made, but it's definitely the closest. It's closer than any other of the Marvel Disney Plus shows have been to that tone and that feel, I guess. So if you're not watching Echo, get on it because it's great. And Kingpin is in it a lot. He's really in it. It's not just a cameo. Daredevil's got a cameo. Kingpin is in it, big time. Was there something else I was going to say about the Daredevil Born Again? I don't remember. It just, I guess, just that it seems insane that you would bring back Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio, and you wouldn't bring back Deborah Ann Woll and Eldon Henson. Like it seems like an insane move that the original version of the show didn't have them in it. Like, and if you're recasting, that's crazy because they're both great in those roles. And if you're recasting those, you should recast everybody. You should recast all the leads. But if you're bringing in 2, and you're like, the characters are essential to Daredevil. So to not have those characters in it,
portrayed
crazy.
by Charlie Cox, that like as the Daredevil, that if this is a continuation, you can't do it without those 2, and to have them back is perfect.
And finally, someone else realized that and are bringing them back. So that's good news. Another thing that I think is really cool, but who knows if it'll actually will go. Something that Steve and I are not super well versed in. Steve maybe a little bit more than me these days, but Star Trek. A Star Trek announcement this week. Paramount has announced a new Star Trek movie to be directed by Toby Haynes, who is the main director on Star Wars Andor, a little show that's, a masterpiece. Going to be written by Seth Grahame-Smith, who was a big writer-producer in Hollywood. He wrote the Lego Batman movie, and also produced like the It films and a bunch of other well-known movies. Produced by J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot. This is going to be a prequel that will take place decades before the first J.J. Abrams Star Trek reboot, the 2009 Star Trek film. Now, this doesn't mean that Star Trek 4 isn't still happening, although that's been up in the air for a long time. But apparently this article also says there's a deadline that broke this article. Broke this news. Star Trek 4 is still currently in development with the J.J. Abrams cast. That's Chris Pine, Zoe Saldana, etc. And I guess Paramount just saw the popularity of all of their streaming shows that have been getting great reviews and a lot of views. and are deciding to capitalize on that while Star Trek 4 is still not ready to go. I would assume they initially wanted to just move it forward with Star Trek 4. Remember, it was like a year ago or so when they announced Star Trek 4, and Chris Pine was like, I hadn't heard anything about that, but apparently they're making Star Trek 4. They announced it without having talked to any of the cast. So haven't gotten that off the ground yet. So they're going in a different direction. I think it's smart. You can have 2 different Star Treks going at once. And why not? I don't know. I never saw Star Trek Beyond. I never saw that 3rd one, but I would probably see this. I don't know why I wouldn't as well.
I know, I did see that. Yeah, I mean, I'm curious. Right now, they're like Strange New Worlds is kind of dabbling in that space.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a weird situation where you've got multiple continuities dealing with the same timeline, and
yeah. But couldn't it just be like a different ship and it going to a different thing and solving a different problem?
Yeah, I mean, hypothetically,
could just be all new characters, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's some overlap, but yeah, I guess it's I don't know. I didn't mind that, like, the new Star Trek films were fine. Everyone that I saw,
the first one I thought was great.
Yes,
I really liked the first one.
The other 2 were
I didn't like the second one as much. I heard the 3rd one was really good, and I never.
Third one was.
I didn't.
I liked it more than the second one, not as much as the first one.
Okay, yeah. I still should see that 3rd one, but.
So yeah, I mean, it's there. I gonna do the thing like I did earlier, where it's like, I think I'm just becoming. The more we talk about this over the years, and the more we just keep going through all this, I'm just so increasingly jaded on what these studios are doing. It's like, it boggles my mind how they can do this. Of like everything that the fan base is saying, or anybody that is actually analyzing this stuff or taking a more than a surface glance at it, they take a look at it and make the exact opposite conclusion. It's like, oh yeah, we're having MCU overload. Let's put out more MCU things. Great idea.
I think what you're feeling is the at one time slow but now inescapable feeling that the people that make these movies or greenlight these movies look at them as content instead of art.
Oh, 100%.
And they want to make content that makes them money instead of thinking what the best artistic decision is to make a great movie. They want to make money over making art.
Oh, 100%. And that's always been a thing.
It's always been a business. It's always been a business.
Oh,
it's always been about money. I get it. But I think once upon a time, there were people in upper levels of studios that cared about movies being good and cared about them being artistic achievements. And I think now more than anything, people look at them as being a means to make millions of dollars, and that's about it. They don't care if it's good or not.
Right. I think the jadedness is coming from there used to be the ability to do both. You could make a movie that was extremely good and make you a boatload of money, but also have it be a good movie and have it be artistic and like more than just a shell with a name on it that people are going to go to see just because of the name and some flashy special effects. See Transformers by Michael Bay.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's what I mean when I say it was like a slow, slow overhaul. Because I think a long time ago, or again, once upon a time, it maybe leaned in the other direction. We're like, yeah, we're trying to make money, but we want to put out good stuff. And then it slowly was like, we can do both, and both are important. Now it's definitely kind of leaning the other way,
right? Or like we were talking about the Blank Check podcast, where it was like, these in the past, it was like you made a blockbuster or a great movie, and you got a blank check to go do whatever you wanted to.
Right.
And studios would still hire you to do whatever you wanted to. And I feel like we almost don't see that nearly as much anymore.
But we may again if we get another summer like the summer we just had, where we got tons of blockbusters and most of them underperformed.
Yeah. Most of them bombed almost.
Yeah. As much as people like Mission Impossible, they were not running out to go see the new Mission Impossible movie.
Right.
And only a few movies really hit. And a lot of the ones that did were things like Oppenheimer, which is a 3-hour movie about people talking to each other in different rooms. Or Barbie, that's like a recognizable brand, but the story is incredibly new and something that we've never seen before, ever, and is a masterpiece in its own right. So like,
now we say this, but when you look at the 2023 worldwide box office, you had Barbie, and then you had Super Mario Brothers,
Yeah.
and then Oppenheimer, but then it was Guardians 3, Fast X, Across the Spider-Verse, The Little Mermaid remake, Mission Impossible, that we just talked about as being a flop, but it still made
Sure.
567 million
yeah,
worldwide.
I know, yeah,
And then Wonka. So literally three movies that weren't sequels, one of which wasn't based off an existing IP. And then Elemental.
No,
so like
I'm not.
3 movies in the top 10 that weren't farming for
Sure.
content.
I'm not saying those movies still don't do well, but a lot of those movies didn't do as well as studios thought they were going to do based on prior years or prior installments.
Right. I guess when you get to
so that's why still like we got the
beyond
reports
that,
like we just said of Mission Impossible underperforming, even though it's in the top 5 highest grossing films of the
Right.
summer or whatever.
the next 10 are a little like you get Quantumania, John Wick 4, Transformer Rise of the Beast, Dial of Destiny at 383, Aquaman, Hunger Games, and then surprises like Five Nights at Freddy's, and
Yeah.
then Creed 3 and The Flash.
Yeah.
Like 22 is Taylor Swift The Eras Tour. Literally a video of a concert made 261 million.
Yeah. And she made all that herself. She did not. Do you know she didn't go through any studios? She
Yeah.
didn't sell that to studios. She made deals directly with theaters.
Yep.
Insane.
Yeah.
So smart. So smart. Anyway. Yeah, I mean we're not I'm not saying that this past summer is the death of the franchise movie. They're not going anywhere for sure, but I think studios might be looking at things they've already talked about or we've already talked about, like spreading out the content, not putting a million blockbusters out in the same summer, letting things breathe a little bit, or spending less money on them so the box office isn't the worst thing ever.
Did I tell you we watched Cocaine Bear?
You did. Yeah, I didn't get any details from you. You said that you watched it.
That was one of the most ridiculous movies I've ever seen, and it was well worth a
Oh, okay.
watch. It
Oh,
was
great. Okay.
it
I'll watch
was it was something.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I also finished speaking of shows, I guess we talked about Echo 15 minutes ago.
Yeah.
I finished Monarch Legacy of Monsters.
Oh, nice. I still have the
Moved through
10th
that,
episode,
yeah.
so maybe
Oh,
we can
really?
talk about
Okay,
that.
I won't say anything.
Talk about that next
I won't say
week.
anything.
But anyone who's not watching it, I know we've talked about it a couple times over the last couple of weeks, is good.
Yeah.
Do they
It
land
is
the plane?
good. Yeah. I think yes,
Okay.
they do for sure. I thought it started dragging for me a little in the middle, but as I said to you, like that's just like I've just been like, I don't know, slowing down on TV shows because I feel like they all, for the most part, take so long to get to. Like there's 10 episodes. I feel like this show could have been like 8 episodes or maybe
So-
like I don't know. There was a lot of stuff that I didn't care about.
Yeah.
but
That's the
then
problem
it
I've
started
had.
really picking up towards the end.
A lot of TV recently. I feel like stuff that's 5 or 6 episodes, they're cutting too much, and then stuff that's like
Yeah.
10 episodes, they're fluffing. And it's like
I
what,
agree.
somebody figure out how many episodes a show should actually be and make that the length of the show.
I didn't feel that way with Echo. I thought like Echo was
Right,
like
5
5
was right.
episodes, and it was a great 5 episodes. Like
Okay.
there was no like there's one episode of Monarch where it's like, let's dive deep into this character's backstory for an entire episode. It's like I don't really care. Just like keep showing me more monsters and move the plot forward. I don't
Right.
I don't care about this character enough to know like their entire life story.
Right. And I thought
Echo did
that
not
was
do
actually
that.
something
Echo was
Monarch
just like boom, 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 boom.
something Monarch did very well was the show isn't 100% a monster show. They use the
Right,
monsters to move the personal plot along, which is
Yeah.
that's exactly how you need to do something like that.
Yeah,
And
I think I went in expecting more monsters.
Right.
So for me, I was a little like, all right, where?
Well, they give you that hit
Yeah.
right off the bat, and then
Yes.
like it's a
Yeah.
slow burn from there. Like you get glimpses of a bunch of different monsters, a bunch of different Titans.
Yeah,
which is
that's
awesome.
cool.
And then like the
You
payoff
do-
comes around later.
You do get a good ending.
Okay.
You get a good, yeah, for sure. But yeah, it's definitely
Brian,
worth a watch.
Brian 100% agrees. Echo was the perfect length. Monarch was really good, but dragged.
Yep.
So
Total agree. And Echo's not perfect either. Like there's
No.
times when I'm just like, it's a little convenient that person just happens to be there, or but like that happens in every superhero show.
well, that's
You know,
I'm
not
a lot
judging
of
it by other rules.
heard a lot of complaints about the first episode because of
Sure.
the relative fan service and some things that were cut a little jankily and stuff like that.
They also like
But then-
recap tons of Hawkeye
Right.
in because they're billing it as you don't have to have seen other things.
Right. So we're seeing
and that
literal
only
scenes
makes
from
sense.
Hawkeye in there.
That only works because they show you stuff you've already seen in Hawkeye, which I was fine with because I was like,
And
okay,
it
I'll
actually,
take a refresher.
It relatively fit. Like it was
Yeah,
again, it
and
was
they
a
show
little
you-
choppy, but it fit.
Yeah. And they show you things that happen in between those scenes and before
Right.
those scenes and stuff. So they kind of like plays out. It gives you different context for those scenes.
Yep.
In a way that I liked a lot and helped push the rest of the show.
You know what else gives you different context?
What's that?
When you completely erase things and rewrite a multiverse, like the Ultimate Universe.
Yes, Steve, do you have a comic to review this week? I do not have a comic to review this week. I was not able to make it down to Funky Town to pick up a comic to review, and I also didn't read any single issue of a book to talk about this week. So, Steve, you're the only comic review. What do you got? Speaking of multiverses,
I got
what
a
could we
lot of
possibly be
I
talking
got a
about?
lot of comic things this week because after this I'll talk about my 1,000 comics in 2024 mess
Yeah,
that I got myself into.
I didn't read any, but you are more than making up for it.
Yes. You may have heard of it, folks. Ultimate Spider-Man #1 by
Yeah.
Jonathan Hickman, art by Marco Cicchetto. This is the Cicchetto variant. He did 3 different variant covers
That is
with
awesome cover.
classic suit, black suit, and oh god, what else did he do?
2099, right?
Yeah, 29.99 suit. Absolute killer covers, absolute killer book. Mike, I said earlier that before the pod that one of the issues that I had read to date was a 7 out of 5.
Yes, on a scale from 1 to 5 stars, you gave it 7 stars. is what
Yes.
you told me.
This is that book.
Wow.
I don't know. Hickman is on his sauce. He does the standard Ultimates thing of take something twist it, but he also did the Hickman thing of take something twist it, throw it on its head, subvert expectations, and have it make sense at the end.
Mm.
So it's not weird ass Hickman. It's not the like completely out there Hickman. It's like he knows what he's cooking with and he knows where he's going with this. And I'm trying to bounce around without spoiling anything. Peter is extremely well characterized. J. Jonah Jameson is extremely well done. The whole family dynamic, because if anyone has seen any of the previews, Mayday is back and Peter has a son, and he and MJ are married, and just have a normal family.
Love that idea.
It's and I can't wait until like there's got to be some point where Mayday comes into the story as having powers or something like classic Mayday Parker from the old But they did it right, and it seems like
Awesome.
Brian agreed. He's been on a Spider-Man kick lately, so his exact quote from the chat: "Ultimate Spider-Man was ridiculously good, even with no Spider-Man in it." So yeah, read it. I'm very curious where they're going with it, but
Cool.
there's a lot of familiar faces and a lot of very unfamiliar territory.
Ooh, okay. Oh, that's the way to write a
That's
grabby comic, I think.
I was talking to my buddy John about it because we have a chat for the 3 of us that we're all just giant read way too many books, and Andy is a huge Spider-Man guy. He hasn't read it yet, but me and my buddy John were talking, and we're like, it's a retelling of a tale without rehashing a tale.
Ooh, okay.
So, and
I'm
when
dying to
you
read it.
read it, you'll know 100% what I'm talking about. But
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
it's well done. And I'm
Awesome.
curious
I will definitely.
what will happen this week with Black Panther #1.
Black Panther #1.
I thought Ultimate Black Panther was this week.
Oh, was it really? I didn't see it on my list.
Maybe I was wrong. I thought the 3 of them were coming out back to back.
Maybe the list that I have is wrong. But I didn't see it on the list, but that doesn't mean that it's 100% valid.
Oh wow, February 7th. Are they coming out every month?
Oh, maybe it's yeah.
Let's see. X-Men is coming out February 1st. Oh, weird. There's just a gap in between. Oh, no,
okay.
that was
Like a week,
weird.
or two off. Well, I am pumped to read it. Like I said, I didn't make it down to this past week, but if I had, that's what I would have picked that up as well. So definitely we'll get to that this week. Ultimate Spider-Man, big fan of an older Peter and a married Mary Jane, just because it's territory
it's so
we haven't
unconventional.
traveled before.
Yeah.
But it's also territory that a lot of fans have wanted, but they keep retconning him to be a teenager, and we just want to see the progression of his life. We can go back and read the stories when he's a teenager, show us what happens when he grows up, because he's been a character since 1963 or whatever. So see some development.
On top of that, I did also make progression on my
Your 1,000
comics in 2024. I'm up to 48 on the year, so I believe that is above my 3-a-day quota.
Yeah.
I think I need 2.77 comics per day, so I'm doing okay. Not that I've done the math on it or anything.
So many comics, dude. Just so many.
Yeah, it really is.
Give us another highlight. As another highlight of the past week.
I mean, Ultimate Spider-Man was easily the
Besides
highlight.
Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah.
Transformers 4 was awesome.
Yeah.
Possibly the Transformers 4 might have been the best Transformers that has come out yet of the 4.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And this is a series, again, one that Mike and I have both raved about.
Yeah, it's great.
Was absolutely killer. Wolverine, the start of the Sabretooth War, was very good.
That happened this week?
Yep.
Oh,
yep. 41 is the start of the Sabretooth War. Fall of House and Rise of Power started up.
Mm-hmm.
Those are both like Kieran Gillen in Rise of Power is on another level. Although I usually can say that about I love Gillen books. So
yeah.
Issue 7 of Antarctica, another solid turn in that series. So that's the second arc of Antarctica is kind of in full swing. A couple of big reveals this week, pretty solid.
All right.
Giant size Spider-Man.
Oh yeah, the Miles versus Venom, right?
That's what it looked like. It's Miles trying to harangue a Venom lethal protector that has taken over Eddie Brock's son.
Oh.
But it's like lethal, Venom is he's peacemakering it. He will kill anyone to do what's right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So it's Miles trying to harangue that, and it's again another unique take, but solid take on what's going on there. 4 of them were finishing up dwellings.
Sweet.
Before the Jay interview, and then a random G.I. Joe book that was fine, and Batman City Madness 2. Finally got to that, which I mean that Christian Ward is killing it on that book. Dick shows up, Grayson himself.
Oh, cool.
So
nice.
This week was a very good week for good books.
Oh,
there was the G.I. Joe one outstanding. There was no stinkers in anything I read. So
wow, it's going to be tough. I feel like to keep your momentum up if you do have a week where you just read 14 terrible books.
Yeah.
Like books that is like a slog.
Why am I doing this?
Seems impossible. Why am I doing this?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Steve, luckily for you though, every week more comic books come out and hit the market.
That they do.
For you to choose, for you to add to that 1,000 comic goal. And this week, Some of those books are Alien 3, Amazing Spider-Man number 42, Avengers Twilight number 1, Batman Superman World's Finest number 23, Black Panther number 8, Catwoman number 61, Cobra Commander number 1. Now this is a big book for us here because Funky Town Comics and Vinyl doing a midnight release of Cobra Commander number 1. They did one for the first Transformers. They did one for the Duke, G.I. Joe Duke book. They did one for
Deviant.
The Deviant. Deviant number 3 is also coming out this week. And they're doing for Cobra Commander number 1. So midnight release tomorrow night. I think it probably starts at like 8 or 9.
Usually it's 8
actually start at midnight. Usually it's 8.
I know a friend of the pod, Matt Flynn, will be there with signed prints, or I think signed prints, or doing something. He'll be there.
I know. He's usually there selling stuff.
Yeah.
So
hi, Matt. If you hear this, we're butchering your
hey, Matt.
promo.
Yeah. So yeah, if you like the G.I. Joe book, or I think aren't they doing a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover comic thing? I feel like I heard a rumor of that.
Oh, you haven't
I don't
read
know.
Duke.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't.
Yeah, no. It's the whole Energon universe is very tied in.
Oh yes. Yeah. Okay.
But
So-
it's funny because I walked in, Jeff, I was talking to Jeff over at Funky Town about, he had just recently got onto Transformers, and he was like, holy shit, they really like are tying this all together. Like, I didn't think G.I. Joe and that would work.
Would make sense. Yeah.
And it weirdly does. Like, I did not think I'd be all in on this Energon universe thing.
Yeah.
It's freaking good, man.
All right. Well, if you're into the Transformers book, then you probably want to pick up Cobra Commander to make sure that you know everything that's going on inside that shared universe. Midnight release tomorrow, Funky Town Comics and Vinyl. Also, this Wednesday, Daredevil number 5, the aforementioned Deviant number 3, Green Lantern War Journal number 5, Invincible Iron Man number 14, Jackpot number 1, J. Garrick The Flash number 4, John Constantine Hellblazer, Dead in America.
Well, that's got
number 1.
Mike screaming all over it.
Sure does. Pretty awesome title, too. Justice League versus Godzilla versus Kong, number 4. Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, number 3. My Little Pony, the Kentucky Roller Derby, number 1. Nightwing, number 110. Star Trek, number 16. Star Wars Bounty Hunters, number 42. Star Wars High Republic, number 3. Superman, number 10. Superman Lost, number 10. Titans, number 7. Wonder Woman 5. And X-Men, number 30. Steve, I know you're picking up that My Little Pony, but anything else that you're going to be
I couldn't tell whether you threw that on there for the ridiculousness of the entirety of the title, or for the fact that we went roller skating the other night.
It's true. We did go roller skating the other night, weirdly. It was more for the title and more that, sometimes I make these lists and I want to make sure that we're covering all aspects of comic book fandom. I know My Little Pony, not a thing that I'm into, but it is a thing that a lot of people are into, and those comics, I think, sell pretty well. So just throwing it on here to cover all of the bases.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely getting Cobra Commander.
Sure.
Probably, I don't know if I'll grab Deviant. I really liked 1 and 2. I just have so much.
Hey, but you gotta hit that 1,000. Gotta hit that 1,000.
Do I have to buy that 1,000 though? Can I start renting from Funky Town?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, what can I loan you?
Right. Like, I'm gonna have to start to get to a point where I'm like, all right, Mike, I need everything on your shelves.
You got it, man.
Avengers Twilight looks quite interesting. Basically, the Avengers have to take back the Avengers.
Okay.
Kind of one of those where the name has been co-opted, and I think the government has, I guess, co-opted the Avengers name and created a new Avengers that aren't, the Avengers.
Yeah.
And good old Steve Rogers has to write the ship.
Not happy about it.
Right.
Sure.
So, and it's Zdarsky writing it, so I'll probably buy it.
That's right.
Because
Cool.
I'll walk out of there with like 7 books because I'm like, oh, that does look good. Oh, that does look good. Oh, that does look good. The only things on my pull list that are on here are Cobra Commander and High Republic.
Oh, cool.
So
Nice.
maybe X-Men. I don't know if he's still pulling that for me, but
I did start reading. I purchased a trade collection, volume 1 of Invisible Kingdom by G. Willow Wilson and Christian Ward on art, which is like a space sci-fi cool thing.
Yep.
Feels very much like Star Wars, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah?
And Christian Ward's art is a big hit all the time. And I'm into it. It's really good so far. So I'm gonna keep reading that. And like I said earlier, some other stuff to bone up for the our interview with her, but also I got stuff just hanging out that's been sitting around for a long time I haven't read. So hopefully gonna be able to dive into that for sure.
Well, I hope you don't go down with the sickness, if you will. But if you do, you'll have plenty of time to read.
I will. I have plenty of time to read. I got one shot for the night that we're going to wrap it up here, folks. DC Studios. James Gunn and his new DCU are currently screen testing 3 actors for the role of Supergirl. This is a role, as been reported by Deadline. This is a role that they're saying that it is a role that will likely show up in a different DC project prior to the release of Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow. Like teasing her, maybe she's going to be in Superman Legacy, then she gets her own movie, that kind of thing. So they're not necessarily ready to start shooting Supergirl Woman of Tomorrow, but they're just casting this role for an appearance in another DC project. The 3 actors in contention are Millie Alcock, Amelia Jones, and Meg Donnelly. Millie Alcock is best known for playing Princess Rhaenyra Targaryen on Dragon.
Yep, she was the younger.
While I believe she was the younger version. Yeah.
Yep, she was.
Amelia Jones has been in Netflix's Lock and Key series, as well as the 2022 Best Picture winner, Coda, which I thought was an incredible film, and she's a great actress. And then we got Meg Donnelly, who has worked on the Disney Channel series Zombies, and also currently the voice of Supergirl in the Max original animated movie Crisis on Infinite Earths Part 1. So
I mean,
she
if
might have a leg up.
If we're going by James Gunn logic, she's the shoo-in.
Yeah, but I don't think that Crisis on Infinite Earth is part of his DCU. Right. So, but who knows? She does have previous Supergirl experience. So that's not, no, the other 2 can't put that on their resume.
That's true.
So
I do have another one shot. We're starting to get to that time of year where we're going to start getting news for, Free Comic Book Day announcements, that sort of thing.
Sure, yeah.
Dark Horse did officially put out the word that this one hits close to home on a couple of fronts. Their Free Comic Book Day offering for their Star Wars comics, because they now have the right from IDW. They have the rights back for all the off-brand, like not the mainline stuff, but the adventures and some of the other ancillary publications. They are putting out a Free Comic Book Day version of Young Jedi Adventures, the animated
cool
animated show on Disney Plus. With Nubs, one of the main characters on the cover, that just looks awesome, and it's being written by Daniel Jose Older and art by Andy Duggan, and that's going to be like that. That's the team that's been working on the adventures, and that'll look good, and it's awesome to see them catering towards the youngins.
Yeah, for sure. I don't want to spend a ton of time on this because we're about to wrap up, but something that I just remembered when you said the Star Wars titles. One thing that was rumored this week, not official story, so maybe that's why I didn't put it on the rundown, but there's a rumor this week that Lucasfilm or Disney is considering doing a Star Wars What If series.
Oh, yeah,
Marvel
I saw
What
that.
If series. Thoughts on this? A Star Wars What If series?
I think I like it conceptually in like certain forms, but I don't think I like it in TV show form.
I don't think I like it. Oh, you mean like in comics and stuff?
I would not mind like seeing comic one-shots or something like that as a what if, something that's it's a different take on, like, I feel like if you put something in even the what if, like the Marvel what ifs, after a couple of them I was like, okay, this is what it is.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah. But yet for I'd grab a what if book off the shelf and scarf that down.
Yeah. I feel like with Marvel, it makes sense because we've talked about this before, like whether it be Marvel or DC, comics have like so many different interpretations of so many different characters and so many different writers and outfits and whatever, blah, blah, blah. So it makes sense to like pick and choose storylines, but like Star Wars is one storyline.
Well, it is, but there's always those things that people question of like, what effectively, like, what if, Obi-Wan still beat Anakin, but he didn't fall in the lava?
Yeah.
What if
Right.
Vader is not suited up Vader? Like, how does that change the entire galaxy?
Yeah. I look at the state of the Star Wars fandom being shattered after Last Jedi.
Oh yeah.
And like we had that Star Wars theory YouTuber guy who I know he's like one of the biggest Star Wars YouTube people, but like I think that guy's an idiot. Everything I read about him, I disagree with. And he did something about how women shouldn't like Star Wars or don't like Star Wars. Was a whole thing that happened this week too. The fandom was insane this week for Star Wars. We got announcements, we got yelling, we got excitement, we got this misogynist a-hole saying that women shouldn't be watching Star Wars or don't watch Star Wars or whatever. I think when you have a fandom that breeds opinions like that, or very loud people on the internet that already have opinions like that, like, and then they give us a thing about like, oh, what if I don't know, something that feeds into their, like so many people hate The Last Jedi for whatever reason.
Right.
If they're like, oh, what if Luke actually did show up, did go with Rey instead of, refusing and things like that? Or what if Luke didn't think about killing Ben Solo? Like those things, like that would just feed the beast too much for my taste, I think.
100%.
So I think if they're smart, they would not do that. Or be very careful the story points they choose.
Right. Well, that's why I'm saying in comics, like if they published it, especially like they could publish it under the Dark Horse stuff. And you have, you could literally frame it as this is somebody's fever dream in the canon.
Yeah. Sure.
Like first panel is just like bubbles and it's this dream that we're off on. Yeah. Or something like that. Whereas it's tougher to convey that in a show.
Yeah. I also think to my point, I think doing it in comics is slightly less of a mainstream way to do it, and therefore wouldn't
less
necessarily
likely to
draw the eye of those chuds on YouTube that are complaining about stuff that happened 10 years ago in a movie.
Bravo on the use of the word chud. It's been a long time since I've seen that. That's a deep cut.
It is just the one that came out of my mouth. And I think it well fit. But anyway, I think that's all I got. All you got, Steve? You got anything else?
No, I've had enough cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers.
All right.
You remember that?
I do. Yeah.
Oh God. I think that's
cool.
about it. We don't have any links to that film in the show notes, but we do have links to our interview with Jay Stevens, our website, the Multiverse Report @gmail.com is our email. Check us out on the socials, themultiversereport.com, wherever you find us. Mike and I usually are a little more active on Threads. You can find him at Carol's Kid with a K. You can find me at Dutchhart, Hart. A nice reference to a 90s to 2000s Syracuse basketball player that is very dated at this point. That's about what I got. You should probably check us out and leave us a review on your podcatcher of choice as well, and leave some comments on YouTube. We've had some nice conversations with folks in the chat on this video tonight. So
that's true. It's always nice. Always nice to hear from you. Always nice to see you. So leave us a comment.
Yeah.
Share
thanks to Brian and Travis in the chat tonight.
Thank you, Brian and Travis in the chat. Listen to our Jay Stevens interview if you haven't. Keep in mind or keep your eye out for our G. Willow Wilson one that'll come at the end of the month. And that's all I got. That's all Steve's got. So until next time, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you in the multiverse.